He found out I cheated and just vanished. Now I'm losing my mind and everyone thinks I deserve it. Yeah, that's the mess I'm in right now. I'm Alara, 26, and my life just imploded in the most surreal way imaginable. I'd been with Leland for 4 years, lived together for 2 of those, and everything seemed fine. Until last month, I spent the day with my family. Just a normal Saturday catching up with my mom and sister. Nothing special. When I got home that evening, I immediately felt something was off. The apartment was too quiet, too neat. A sterile kind of clean that didn't belong to us. I called out for Leland, but the only answer was the hum of the refrigerator. I walked into our bedroom and froze. His side of the closet was empty. Not just a few things missing. It was a void. The neat row of his button-down shirts, gone. The worn leather jacket he loved, gone. The shoe rack at the bottom, holding only my heels, looked ridiculously unbalanced. I moved like I was in a dream, my feet heavy. I pulled open the top drawer of his dresser, the one where he kept his watches and cologne. Cleared out. The bathroom cabinet was half empty, his razor and shaving cream conspicuously absent. It was like someone had surgically removed every trace of him from our apartment while I was gone for the day. No note. Nothing, just gone. My hands started to shake as I fumbled for my phone. I immediately called him. Straight to voicemail. I texted him, a frantic string of question marks. No delivery receipt. I checked Instagram, my heart hammering against my ribs, hoping to see if he'd posted anything. And I discovered I was blocked. Langer pause. The same on Facebook. Snapchat. Everything. It was like I'd been erased from his digital life in a single, silent instant. The panic that had been simmering in my chest erupted. I started calling our friends, my voice high and tight, asking if they'd heard from him. Nobody knew anything. Or at least, that's what they claimed. The weirdest part was how he divided our stuff. We'd bought so much together. The big, comfy couch from West Elm we'd argued over for weeks. The matching set of kitchen knives. All the things couples accumulate over years. But he only took what was undeniably his. The coffee maker he'd brought into the relationship, gone. The bookshelf he'd built by hand, gone. But the couch we'd picked out together was still there, a silent, plush monument to a shared life that had just been unilaterally dissolved. It was so calculated. So final. By the 3rd day of radio silence, our mutual friends started reaching out more, asking what happened. They seemed concerned, for both of us. That's when the questions started. Did something happen between you two? Did you have a fight? I told them I had absolutely no idea. That everything had been completely normal. But that wasn't exactly true, was it? I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. I started having these intense panic attacks, hyperventilating on the living room floor, my chest tight with a pain that felt all too real. 1 week in, I was at my breaking point. I'd left probably 50 voicemails, sent hundreds of texts that vanished into the ether. I even tried to reach his parents, who just said, with a chilling politeness, "Leland is fine, Alara, but he doesn't want to speak with you." It wasn't until Maeve, my supposed best friend, came over with that look, you know, that pitying but slightly judgmental look, that the floor truly gave way. She asked, in this careful, quiet voice, "Alara, is there anything you need to tell me? Anything that might explain why Leland left?" The way she asked it, I knew. Somehow, he knew about Reese. But how? I'd been so careful. At least, I thought I had. I maintained my innocent act, of course. My voice cracked appropriately as fresh tears, real tears, fueled by real panic, welled in my eyes. "What are you talking about? Everything was perfect between us." My carefully constructed world was crumbling around me, and I was losing control of the narrative. Pause. The truth? Things with Leland hadn't been perfect for a while. He'd been working longer hours at his architecture firm, climbing the ladder, always tired when he got home. We stopped talking, really talking, about anything meaningful. Our conversations became a series of logistical questions. Did you pick up the dry cleaning? What do you want for dinner? Sex became routine when it happened at all. I felt invisible, taken for granted. Then Reese started at my office 2 months ago. He was a graphic designer, sharp and funny, with eyes that actually saw me. He noticed me in ways Leland hadn't in years. He complimented my ideas in meetings, asked about my day, and actually listened to the answer. One happy hour with coworkers led to drinks alone, which led to his apartment. I told myself it was just physical, just once. Something I needed to feel alive again, to feel desired. But it wasn't just once. For 8 weeks, I'd been living a double life. Texting Reese during work hours, making up girls' nights to see him. Coming home to Leland with the scent of another man's cologne washed away in a gym shower. The thrill of it was intoxicating, having this secret that was just mine. Looking back, there were signs Leland suspected something. Little questions. Working late again? The way his eyes lingered a second too long on my phone when I left it unlocked on the coffee table. How he suddenly started suggesting weekend trips, date nights, as if trying to reconnect with a woman who was already drifting away. I dismissed his concerns, made him feel paranoid for asking. "Don't you trust me?" I'd say, watching him back down, guilt written all over his face for even questioning me. The irony was suffocating. 3 days before he disappeared, I'd forgotten to log out of my personal email on our shared laptop. Reese had sent details about a hotel he'd booked for us for the upcoming weekend. Not the first time, but definitely the most explicit message. I remembered feeling a flicker of panic when I couldn't find my phone that evening, thinking I'd lost it. Now I realized. Leland must have seen it. He hadn't been normal that week. He'd been quiet, distant. He hadn't been clueless. He'd been planning. While I was carelessly conducting my affair, he was methodically organizing his exit. "He's the villain here," I whispered to my empty apartment, trying to convince myself. Who leaves without a conversation, without a chance to explain or apologize? I deserved a fight, tears, accusations. Something to give me the opportunity to beg for forgiveness, to promise it would never happen again. His silence was so much worse than anger could ever be. 2 weeks after he vanished, Maeve called. Her voice was strange, distant. "Leland reached out to me," she said. "He wanted me to check on you, make sure you're okay." My heart leaped. "What? Where is he? Did he say anything about why he left?" A pause, a heavy one. "Alara, he knows about Reese. He has proof. He showed me the messages." My stomach dropped into a black hole. "What are you talking about?" "Don't," she said, her voice hardening. "Just don't. He has screenshots, hotel receipts. He even followed you one night. He saw you with him." I hung up the phone and threw it across the room, watching it shatter against the wall. The worst part wasn't that Leland knew the truth. It was that now, others were beginning to know it, too. 3 weeks in, the floodgates opened. Leland had apparently sent the evidence of my affair to several of our closest friends. Not publicly, not vindictively, just privately, sharing why he'd left so suddenly. One by one, my support system crumbled. A text from Isla before she blocked me. "I can't believe you made us worry about you when you were the one cheating. Leland is heartbroken. How could you do this to him?" From Ryan, who'd helped Leland pick out my birthday gift last year. "To us? We trusted you, Alara." Even people who didn't know the specifics started acting differently. Whispers followed me at work. Reese began taking his lunch at different times, avoiding eye contact in meetings. The affair had fizzled almost immediately after Leland left. Reese got spooked by my emotional situation, as he called it. Men are such cowards when things get complicated. I tried changing the narrative. It wasn't what it looked like, I told anyone who would still listen. Leland and I were practically broken up already. He was emotionally unavailable. I even tried minimizing it. It was just a mistake, one time, and he's overreacting. Who disappears after 4 years over one mistake? Some people, mostly acquaintances who didn't know Leland well, seemed willing to give me the benefit of the doubt. But those closest to us, they knew better. They'd seen us together. They knew Leland wasn't some emotionally distant workaholic. They remembered how he looked at me, how he always made sure I was included, comfortable, happy. You know what your problem is? My sister finally snapped after listening to me spin the same excuses for the 5th time. You can't stand that he didn't give you the satisfaction of seeing him broken. He just opted out. And it's driving you crazy. She was right, though I'd never admit it to her. The fact that he hadn't fought for me, hadn't begged to know why, hadn't given me the chance to manipulate the situation, it was infuriating. I had prepared so many excuses, justifications, even tears, all wasted on an empty apartment. I became obsessed. For 2 months, my life was a frantic, desperate search. I wasn't just heartbroken. I was consumed by a burning need to find him, to talk to him face to face, where my tears and our shared history might still hold some power. If I could just see him, touch him, remind him of what we had before everything went wrong, maybe I could fix this. Not because I was sure I wanted him back. At this point, I wasn't even sure I did, but because I couldn't stand being the one left behind, the one everyone blamed. I got my break on a Tuesday morning. A casual scroll through a mutual friend's Instagram stories revealed a location tag, a new coffee shop across town, the Daily Grind. And there, in the background of a group photo, barely visible but unmistakable, was Leland. He was sitting at a corner table, laptop open, looking fine. He looked fine. Not devastated. Not hollowed out and broken. Just normal. Something snapped inside me. While I'd been falling apart, missing work, alienating friends, and having panic attacks on my bathroom floor, he'd been moving on. The unfairness of it all was staggering. I didn't plan what happened next. I just found myself driving to that coffee shop the following morning, arriving at 8:15 a.m. Leland was always ritualistic about his morning coffee. I parked across the street and waited, heart hammering so hard I could barely breathe. At 8:20, he appeared, walking up the street in his charcoal peacoat. He looked good. Rested, calm, purposeful. I watched him order at the counter, exchange a familiar smile with the barista. How often had he been coming here? He then settled at a table near the window. Before I could talk myself out of it, I was crossing the street, pushing open the coffee shop door, the little bell chiming ominously. I walked toward him. He didn't notice me until I was standing right at his table, casting a shadow across his open laptop. His eyes lifted. Elora. Just my name, spoken flatly. No surprise, no shock, no emotion, as if he'd been expecting this moment all along. You just left? My voice sounded strange, strangled. No explanation, no fight, nothing. 4 years, and you just disappeared. Sit down, he said quietly, glancing around at the other customers who were beginning to stare. You're making a scene. I didn't sit. I deserve an explanation, Leland. You know why I left, he said, his voice low but steady, never breaking eye contact. You know exactly why. You could have talked to me, given me a chance to explain. And explain what? For the first time, a flash of cold anger broke through his careful composure. How you lied to my face for months. How you were sleeping with your coworker while I was at home planning our future. It wasn't what you think, I said, falling back on the same defenses I'd been rehearsing for weeks. Things between us weren't good. You were always working, always distracted. Stop. He held up a hand, a gesture so final it silenced me instantly. Just stop. I'm not doing this. I'm not sitting here listening to you rewrite our history to justify your choices. Then why did you ask Maeve to check on me? I threw his own words back at him, searching desperately for any crack in his armor. Why would you care if I'm okay? Because I'm not cruel, he said simply. I didn't want you spiraling. but that doesn't mean I owe you a conversation about this. You owe me closure. My voice rose again, causing more heads to turn. Leland's eyes hardened. I don't owe you anything anymore, Alara. You ended our relationship the moment you decided to cheat. I just made it official. The barista, a young woman with a concerned expression, approached our table. Everything okay here? It's fine, Diane, Leland said. He knew her name. Of course he did. I was just leaving. He stood, gathering his things with a maddening calm. No. I grabbed his arm, my grip surprisingly strong. You don't get to walk away again. I need... Ma'am, the barista interrupted, her tone firm now. I'm going to have to ask you to lower your voice or leave. Leland gently removed my hand from his arm. What you need, he said, his voice dropping so only I could hear, isn't something I can give you anymore. Where are you living? I demanded, desperation making me reckless. Are you seeing someone new already? Is that it? He sighed, a deep, weary sound. He looked genuinely tired now. This is exactly why I left the way I did. I knew any conversation would just be you trying to control the situation. Make yourself the victim. Find ways to blame me. I'm done with that dynamic. Sir, the barista said to Leland, do you need me to call someone? No need, he said, sliding his laptop into his bag. He looked at me one last time, his eyes empty of the love I once knew. Don't come looking for me again, Alara. It's over. Let both of us move on. No. As he walked toward the door, I called after him, my last pathetic plea. So that's it? 4 years ends like this? He paused, his hand on the door, and turned slightly. No, it ended 2 months ago. This is just you refusing to accept it. And then he was gone. 6 months after Leland disappeared from my life, I sat in my new apartment. It was smaller, in a less desirable neighborhood than the one we'd shared. The walls were thin, and the view from my window was a brick wall. A fitting metaphor for my life. I'd kept my job barely, though the promotion I'd been in line for went to someone else. To Reese, ironically. He avoided eye contact in the hallways now, a ghost from a life I barely recognized. Some friends had tentatively reconnected after my public pursuit of Leland stopped, though our relationships remained strained, fragile things. You seem better, my sister said over coffee that morning, though her eyes held a question. I am, I replied automatically. The lie came easily after so many months of practice. Work's going well. I'm thinking of taking a vacation next month. Good, she hesitated. Then, have you heard about Leland? My heart stuttered, a painful, familiar rhythm. Should I have? He's engaged, she said gently, to a woman named Cora. It was on Instagram last night. Long pause. The coffee turned to acid in my stomach. 6 months. 6 months from discovering my affair to proposing to someone new. The cosmic unfairness of it burned like bile in my throat. At home, I broke my 6-week streak of not looking him up online. And there it was. The announcement. The ring, a beautiful, simple solitaire on a graceful hand that wasn't mine. The glowing comments from our friends. Our friends. Congratulating him on finding someone who deserves you. Celebrating their perfect match. One comment from Maeve stuck out painfully. So happy you found your person after everything. You deserve this happiness more than anyone. I scrolled through photos of them together. Hiking at a state park we used to love. Laughing at a party. Cooking in what must be his new kitchen. She fits seamlessly into the life that was supposed to be mine. In each picture, Leland looked relaxed, genuinely happy in a way I couldn't remember seeing in our later years together. The most painful realization wasn't just that he'd moved on. It was that he seemed better off without me. Happier. More himself. While I was still stuck in the wreckage of what we'd been, he'd somehow emerged stronger, finding someone who apparently made him happier than I ever had. My phone pinged with a notification. A group message from Isla to several old friends, including me, probably by accident. She was organizing Leland and Cora's engagement party. The message included details of the venue, an upscale rooftop bar downtown. 3 glasses of wine later, the idea had metamorphosed from unthinkable to inevitable. I would go. Not to cause a scene, I told myself. I was past that stage of grief, just to see them together with my own eyes. To understand what she had that I didn't. To get the closure Leland had denied me. The night of the party, I spent hours getting ready. New dress, professional makeup, hair styled perfectly. I arrived fashionably late, the elevator ride to the rooftop filled with the hammering of my own heart. The hostess smiled as I approached the private section reserved for the party. Name? Alara Mitchell, I said confidently. I'm with the engagement celebration. She checked her tablet, her smile faltering. I'm sorry. I don't see your name on the list. Alara? What are you doing here? I turned to find Isla staring at me, a champagne glass in her hand, confusion giving way to alarm. I got the invitation, I said, gesturing vaguely at my phone. The group message. Her face fell. Alara, that was sent to you by mistake. You know you're not supposed to be here. More heads were turning now. And then, through the crowd, I saw him. Leland, handsome in a navy suit, his arm wrapped around a woman in a white dress who had to be Cora. Our eyes met across the rooftop. His smile vanished, his body tensed slightly, and he instinctively pulled Cora closer to his side. It was a protective gesture that spoke volumes about how he now saw me. As a threat, the hostess was speaking into her earpiece. Security to the rooftop, please. Alara, you need to leave, Isla said, gently but firmly taking my arm. This isn't about you. It hasn't been about you for a long time. Security arrived. 2 imposing men in dark suits. Ma'am, we need you to come with us. Ah, I'm leaving, I said, snatching my purse, my voice shaking with a humiliation so profound it felt like a physical blow. I looked past Isla, toward Leland. Tell him congratulations from me. Tell him I hope she makes him happier than I apparently did. And tell him that real love doesn't just disappear overnight, no matter what pretty replacement you find. As security escorted me to the elevator, I caught one last glimpse of the party. Leland was speaking urgently to Cora, who looked concerned but not angry. Their friends had gathered protectively around them, shielding the happy couple from the crazy ex's intrusion. In that moment, the truth I'd been avoiding for months finally crystallized. I was the villain in their story. The obstacle they'd overcome. The cautionary tale they'd tell at dinner parties years from now. My phone buzzed in my purse. I couldn't face anyone, not even my sister. Later, in the sterile quiet of a cab, I finally checked my phone. 3 missed calls from my sister. 2 texts. Please tell me you didn't go to that party. Followed by, call me as soon as possible. And a message from an unknown number. This is Cora. We need to talk. My heart stopped. Cora. Leland's fiancée. She had my number. My thumbs hovered over the screen, my mind racing through 100 disastrous scenarios. Finally, I typed back 2 words. When and where? The response came quickly. Tomorrow, 2 p.m. Riverfront coffee on Main. I slept poorly, imagining every possible confrontation. I expected tears, accusations, a warning to stay away. I arrived at the coffee shop 20 minutes early, choosing a corner table with a clear view of the door, needing to feel some semblance of control. At exactly 2 p.m., she walked in. I recognized her immediately from the photos, though she looked different in person. Taller than I'd imagined, with a quiet confidence in the way she carried herself. She wasn't wearing her engagement ring. I realized she'd tucked it away for this meeting. A small, considerate gesture that immediately threw me off balance. Alara, she said, her voice calm as she sat down across from me. Thank you for coming. Did Leland send you? I asked immediately, my tone more defensive than I intended. No. She wrapped her hands around her coffee mug. He doesn't know I'm here, and I'd prefer to keep it that way. That. Then why? I wanted to see you for myself, she said simply. To understand. Understand what? The woman who haunts him. Her bluntness caught me completely off guard. He talks about me? Not in the way you think, she clarified. It's not pining, it's a shadow. I can feel it sometimes. When certain songs play, when we drive past your old neighborhood, he tenses up. There's a scar there, and I wanted to understand the wound. Something ugly and triumphant flickered in my chest. So, I wasn't completely erased after all. I still existed somewhere in his mind. Can I ask you something? She leaned forward slightly. Why did you cheat on him? The directness of the question stunned me. No one had asked it so plainly. Not my sister, not Maeve. They had only judged. It's complicated, I stammered. I'm sure it is, she agreed, her expression unreadable. Most important things are. I fell back on the easiest explanation, the one I had told myself so many times it almost felt true. We grew apart. He was working all the time. I felt neglected. It just happened. She nodded, considering this. And was it worth it, the affair? Obviously not, I snapped. Look at my life now. That's not what I asked, she said gently. Her calmness was more unnerving than any anger would have been. I mean, in the moment, when you were deciding to cross that line, did you think it would be worth whatever consequences might come? I didn't think there would be consequences, I admitted in a small voice. I never thought he'd find out, and if he did, I trailed off, realizing how utterly selfish it sounded. You thought he'd forgive you? She finished for me. Fight for you, not walk away. I nodded, my throat tight with unshed tears. That's what I needed to understand, she said, almost to herself. She looked me directly in the eye, and her next words struck me like a physical blow. You never really knew him at all, did you? I was with him for 4 years, I whispered, defensive. Of course, I knew him. The Leland I know, she said with a quiet, unshakable certainty, would never stay with someone who betrayed him, not because he's unforgiving, but because trust means everything to him. Once it's broken, it's broken. He doesn't do second chances with trust. That is the core of who he island. We could have worked through it, I insisted, the old argument feeling weak and hollow even as I said it. If he'd just talked to me, instead of disappearing. That's what I'm trying to tell you, she interrupted, not unkindly. For him, there was nothing to work through. There was no conversation that needed to happen. The moment you betrayed his trust, it was over. The Leland who loved you ceased to exist in that moment. No, the mirror she was holding up was brutal and unflinchingly clear. How many times had Leland told me, in different ways, that trust was his non-negotiable? How many stories had he shared about his parents' toxic marriage, built on lies and second chances that never fixed the fundamental break? How had I missed it? How had I been so arrogant to think his deepest held principle wouldn't apply to me? Why are you telling me this? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Because you're still waiting for a different ending, she said. You're still convinced there's unfinished business between you. And as long as you believe that, you can't move forward. And neither can he, completely. Which means neither can I. So that's what this is? I gestured between us. You helping me move on so your relationship can be shadow-free? She considered this for a moment. Partly, yes. I won't pretend this is purely altruistic. But also, she paused, choosing her words carefully. I know what it's like to be stuck in the aftermath of choices you can't take back. She stood, gathering her things. I should go. Leland will be wondering where I am. As she turned to leave, a final, desperate question burst from me. Are you happy together? I mean, really? She paused at the door, then looked back at me with a small, genuine smile. Yes, we are. And someday, Alara, I hope you find what makes you happy too. But you won't find it looking backward. I sat in that coffee shop long after Cora left, her words echoing in the empty space around me. You never really knew him at all, did you? For the first time since he'd vanished, I truly understood. There had never been a chance for reconciliation. No possible combination of words or tears or promises could have changed the outcome. The war was over before I even knew it had been declared. The moment I chose Reese, I had forfeited Leland. I just hadn't known it yet. My mind replayed scenes from our 4 years together, now cast in a harsh, new light. A conversation we had early on, about his father's affairs. It wasn't the cheating that destroyed my mom, Leland had said, staring into his beer. It was the lying. It was him promising it would never happen again, and it always did. She stayed. She kept giving him chances, and it just hollowed her out. I swore I would never live like that. I'd rather be alone than be with someone I couldn't trust completely. I had nodded, squeezed his hand, and thought it was a romantic declaration of his integrity. I never once thought it was a warning. A clear statement of his terms and conditions. Another memory surfaced. A stupid fight about a white lie I'd told to get out of a dinner with his work friends. It seemed so insignificant at the time. But I remember the look on his face, not anger, but a deep, profound disappointment. "Just tell me the truth, Alara," he'd said. "Even if it's ugly. I can handle any truth. I can't handle not knowing what's real." He had shown me, over and over, who he was. I just hadn't been paying attention. I was too wrapped up in my own needs, my own insecurities, my own desire to be the center of the universe. I saw his principles as abstract ideas, not as the rigid, unbending steel that formed the spine of his character. The realization didn't bring peace, exactly, but it brought something adjacent to it, a clarity that had been missing these long, painful months. The frantic energy that had propelled me forward, the obsession, the anger, the desperate need for confrontation finally dissipated, leaving behind a vast, quiet sadness. The story had ended, not in the way I'd wanted or expected, but it had ended nonetheless. And I'd been the one who wrote the ending, with choices I couldn't unmake. Walking home from the coffee shop, the city felt different. The sharp edges of my grief had been worn smooth, not by time, but by the abrasive power of the truth. The narrative I had clung to for 6 months, the story of the misunderstood victim, the man who overreacted, the relationship that could have been saved, crumbled into dust. All that was left was me. My new apartment, which had felt like a prison cell, a symbol of my failure, now just felt like a room. 4 walls waiting for something new to be put inside them. I pulled out my phone, my fingers hovering over my sister's contact. For months, our conversations had been a loop of my complaints, my justifications, my rage. I hadn't really talked to her. I had talked at her. I texted her, "Can I come over? I think I'm finally ready to talk. Really talk." Her response came immediately. "Always. Doors open." I put my phone away and began walking toward her place, not looking back. Leland was gone. The life we'd planned was gone. The woman I thought I was, the good person, the girlfriend, the victim, was gone, too. All that remained was who I might become next, in the aftermath of my own choices. Whether I'd learn from them or repeat them, whether I'd continue blaming everyone else for my unhappiness or finally take responsibility for creating my own. The path forward looked lonely and uncertain. But for the first time in 6 months, at least it looked forward. Not back at the life I had torched to the ground, but ahead to what I might still find, if I was brave enough to face myself, honestly, at last. Maybe that was the only closure I was ever going to get. Maybe it was the only closure I deserved.